Revealed, 7 spine-chilling paranormal encounters no one else can see, the haunted truth exposed. Samantha's heart raced as she shuffled through the familiar halls of her home, the seemingly benign suburb of Maplewood now crawling with shadows. Night after night, she felt the weight of the darkness pressing against her, whispers curling in the corners like spectral fingers, dragging her spirits down. The walls that once echoed with laughter were now muted, filled only with the sinister echoes of her own fears. "It's just fatigue," she told herself, hardly believing it as she tucked her 2 kids into bed, their faces relaxing into slumber while her mind spun with worry. Then came the whispers, the chilling words seeping through the cracks of her once beautiful sanctuary. "Mom! Jerome is watching me again," her son Jake gasped one evening, sprinting into her room, his small frame quaking with terror. A shiver snaked down Samantha's spine. Jerome, sweet, smiling Jerome who waved hello at the bus stop. Wasn't he that just kids being kids? Yet Jake's fearful eyes pierced through her rationalization, igniting an ember of dread deep within her. The morning sun barely warmed her spirit as she walked through Maplewood's pristine streets. The friendly neighbors exchanged casual greetings, but their smiles now felt suspicious, the backyard barbecues a facade she couldn't penetrate. When she approached the neighborhood watch to air her concerns, instead of sympathy, laughter echoed in her ears. "Kids have wild imaginations," the leader chuckled, patting her arm dismissively. A breeze kicked up, carrying the scent of freshly cut grass and false reassurances, yet inside her, an icy knot tightened. She found herself adrift, isolated among those who couldn't or wouldn't see. The days turned into a haze of growing terror. Symbols appeared on her porch, jagged and otherworldly in the bright morning light. Curtains she distinctly remembered closing would be drawn tight, hiding away the world. One night, brushing her hair in front of the mirror, she felt it before she saw it, a shadow lurking behind her, a fragment of darkness fleeting like a nightmare. The whisper followed, icy and intimate, "Protect him." Every encounter peeled back layers of her perceived safety, revealing a sinister underbelly lurking in their picture-perfect suburb. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. One evening in the kitchen, dread washed over her. The air thick with something dark, she knew she had to confront Jerome. It felt urgent, necessary, an act that could mean the difference between safety and something far worse. As she reached for her phone, the lights flickered violently overhead. A cold whisper slithered through the air, "To keep him safe, you must let go." Her breath hitched as terror clawed at her throat. Just what price was she willing to pay? Each step she took left her feeling more trapped as pieces of a chilling puzzle began falling into place. Shadows stretched further, darkness closing in. Was there truly a monster stalking her family, hidden in plain sight? Samantha couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just beyond the edges of her vision. The world outside her window twisted under the illumination of a pale moon, casting odd shapes that danced across her lawn. She gripped her phone tightly, contemplating her next move. Confronting Jerome felt necessary, but doubt rippled through her. What if he was just a child? A figment of Jake's imagination? The kitchen felt colder, the air so thick it made her breath hitch. She glanced at the framed photos lining the walls, remnants of happier times. In those photos, her family smiled, their joy radiating like sunlight. But that warmth felt like a harsh joke now, mocking her in the deepening shadows. With trembling fingers, she typed out a feeble message, asking the neighbor about Jerome. But as she pressed send, an unsettling sensation washed over her. Then came the knock. A sharp sound that echoed through the silence, making her jump. She rushed to the door, expecting to find the comfort of a friendly face. Instead, her heart sank. It was Jerome, standing on her porch, his dark eyes piercing through the gloom. "Is Jake here?" he asked, his voice monotone, empty. "No, he is asleep," she stammered, her stomach knotting. She felt he was far too aware of what was happening in her home, as if he had pierced the veil of innocence children were supposed to maintain. Jerome's gaze lingered on her, unblinking. I saw him playing yesterday, in the back alley. There was a pause, the thick air amplifying the weight of his words. He shouldn't be there. His statement collided against her fears, each word loaded like a ticking time bomb. What do you mean, shouldn't he be there? Samantha responded, anxiety rippling through her. I mean, I've been watching. He stepped closer, and she felt the darkness surround her like a thick fog. She instinctively stepped back. The atmosphere shifted, pulsating with an energy that made her skin crawl. Why? She whispered, the word tumbling out, small and frightened. Because someone is watching him. Someone wet and cold, he said, as though he were recounting a distant story. And I think they want him. Samantha swallowed hard. His words echoed in her mind, intertwining with that haunting phrase she had heard before, protect him. Panic set in as she glanced behind, half expecting to see a hulking silhouette looming in the entryway, ready to snatch her son away. Suddenly, Jake's soft voice called from the hall. Mom? Who's at the door? His innocent inquiry sliced through the tension, but the way Jerome's gaze deepened made her pulse race. Stay inside. Samantha shouted, a surge of desperation surging within her. Jerome turned, his expression changing. Something darker flared across his small face. The lady needs to let go, he murmured, his voice dropping to a chilling rasp. Without thinking, Samantha jerked the door shut, sealing the darkness outside. She leaned against it, her heart pounding in her chest. But the feeling of safety was an illusion, the air inside felt tainted, oppressive. Mom, I saw him. Jake shouted again, eyes wide with both fear and exhilaration. He has a secret. A cold sweat broke out on Samantha's brow. What secret? Was this just a child's rambling, or was there a deeper truth? The atmosphere thickened, the shadows crowding in. They were not alone. Something was watching them, waiting for an opportunity to strike, and time was running out. Mom, you have to, Jake began, but an ominous thud interrupted their conversation. The basement door creaked slightly, the unmistakable sound of something moving downstairs. With instincts ignited, Samantha's decision was made. She would confront the truth, no matter the cost. But her body hesitated, every instinct screaming for her to run, to protect her son. What lay beneath her house, hidden from view? What had her son seen? As Jake pulled away from her grasp, heading for the basement door, Samantha's breath caught in her throat. M.O.M. It's down there. She reached for him, but the shadow seemed to wrap around her feet, pulling her downward. It was time to face the terror. But would she make it in time? The basement door creaked open with a mournful wail, the air seeping out felt heavier than before, more oppressive, more alive. Jake's eyes glittered with a mix of fear and excitement, pulling at the thread of sanity Sam was barely holding on to. Mom, please. His voice was a plea, mingling with the atmosphere thickening around her. Samantha hesitated, her instincts battling with the urgency to protect. Jake, wait. But he had already taken a step forward. The darkness swallowed him, and she could barely see the outline of his small frame. The house seemed to hold its breath. Shadows flitted, curling around corners, and the chill that gripped her intensified. She rushed toward the door, reaching for Jake's arm, determined to pull him back. Get back here. She shouted, her voice firm but shaking. Just a little closer, Mom. He begged, excitement bubbling in his voice. But a deep instinct warned her the way Jerome had looked at her only moments ago flashed through her mind, that darkness lurking behind his innocent facade. Jake! Suddenly, a sinister whisper slid through the air, cutting through the silence like a knife. Go on, little boy. He's waiting for you. Samantha's heart stopped. The chill in the air transformed into a bone-deep frost. The voice was smooth, seductive, crawling over her skin like a pestilent fog. She struggled with fear as she felt something shift behind her, a presence, thick and suffocating, edged closer, feeding on her terror. Time to play, it cooed, laced with an otherworldly echo, forcing her breath to hitch in her throat. Jake! She shrieked, and with that, dread flooded her veins. The basement darkness danced, shadows writhing as if alive, urging Jake deeper into their lair. "I want to see!" Jake yelled, but the innocence twisted into something jarring. Something ancient lurked just beneath the surface, a twisting malevolence that chilled her to the bone. Without thinking, she pushed forward, desperate to reach him. The darkness seemed to throb, pulsing thicker as each of her steps broke through the threshold, stretching her fingers out toward her son. "You can't go down there!" she shouted, fear clawing at her throat. A series of crashes erupted from below, heavy thumps echoing off the walls, followed by a guttural growl that resonated deep within her soul. The basement was alive, and it wanted more than just a child. "Mom!" Jake screamed as the air became electric, a force pulling him further into the abyss. The flickering lights overhead cast erratic shadows dancing on the walls, drawing her unwilling gaze down the staircase into the Stygian depths. "No!" It was a command, a plea. She lunged forward, screaming, tears blurring her vision. She felt cold fingers against her back, a force pressing her. "Stay back," she managed, feeling alive and powerless all at once. In that singular moment, clarity broke through. Something watched from outside weary eyes, something that danced behind the veil of normalcy and struck terror into the heart of every mother. But as she pulled Jake back with every ounce of strength, he suddenly turned back towards the doorway, his eyes wide with something terrifying curiosity? Fear? "Mom, the secret!" Jake shouted, his face morphing with wonder. "It knows me!" And just like that, the shadows froze. Samantha's breath hitched as the world around her dimmed. It wasn't just the basement that was alive, it was in her very home, weaving through the walls, breathing with the echoes of their lives. "Jake!" she called, but his gaze remained fixed ahead, staring into the encapsulating darkness, entranced. In the space of a heartbeat, everything changed. The laughter of children, distorted and mocking, reverberated through the shadows. And then came the thundering reply from below. "It's time to play." The shadows surged forward, and for a splitting second everything went dark. Where had Jake gone? "Jake?" Her voice, tinged with panic. The air felt thick, almost solid, as silence enveloped her. In that stillness, something stirred. "What have you brought me, little one?" A voice crooned from the darkness, and dread seeped deep into her bones as the hunger crawled toward her. Did she dare to step deeper into the unknown? "Mom!" Another scream pierced through the suspense, and it wasn't just fear. Time was running out. Would she descend into madness or find a way to pull Jake from the clutches of that shadow? With resolve igniting within her, Samantha took a breath, shifting from self-preservation to a reckless courage born of maternal instinct. It was time to face whatever lay beneath her house. But the question still gnawed at her mind: what did Jake know that she didn't? The air thickened, swirling with an unseen malice as Samantha stood at the brink. The basement loomed beneath her, a void that whispered promises and threats alike. Every fiber of her being screamed for her to flee, yet the frantic echo of Jake's last cry pulled her forward. "Jake!" she shouted again, voice cracking, desperate to spark a response from the oppressive silence below. The darkness felt sentient, coiling around her ankles, enticing her with whispers that tickled her ears like a lover's breath. The absence of her son's voice gnawed at her insides, an empty echo that wrapped around her heart with icy fingers. She could sense something watching from the depths, something that pulsated with hunger. The shadows shifted, scraping against each other as if preparing for a feast. Samantha's pulse raced, fear and determination fighting within her. What could it possibly want with Jake? Taking a shaky step down the stairs, she felt the old wood creak beneath her weight, each sound amplifying her dread. Just a little further, she muttered under her breath. Shadows shifted nonchalantly, elongating and flickering as if mocking her pace. She gripped the railing, feeling its coldness seep into her bones, her mind spiraling into the remnants of her intuition, every Saturday night story of the haunted ones weaving into a tapestry of the horror that now surrounded her. With every step, the air grew heavier, charged with static energy. It buzzed as if the very walls were alive and relishing the chaos that unfolded. "Come out, Jake," she cried, the frustration bleeding into her voice. "I'm not afraid of you." But were those her own words? Did she truly believe that? As she descended further, the shadows seemed to laugh, a cruel symphony that rang hollow but echoed with a chilling melody. "Mom!" The faint whisper, so like her son, hooked her heart with its soft urgency. It filled the void left by his absence, ricocheting off the walls, a spectral tug that led her deeper into the heart of the darkness. Jake? The name clung to her lips, desperate and pleading. There was no going back. Every instinct told her she would find nothing but despair, yet the mother in her couldn't ignore the call of her child. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted. A tangible, biting cold wrapped around her, almost like a warning. "Get out!" echoed in her mind, a loud scream against the serene calm of the shadows. But what awaited her at the end of this descent hung other dimensional truths beyond the threshold. A grotesque figure began to emerge, features shrouded in darkness but with eyes that glowed an unnatural luminescence that sucked the warmth from the air and replaced it with dread. "You've come for him," it whispered, voice a blend of silk and gravel, voice resembling her own yet tinted with something ancient and twisted. "Where is he?" Samantha dared to ask, though her knees trembled. It laughed, a sound low and guttural that burrowed into her mind, filling her with a familiar despair. "He where he has always been, where you left him." "No!" she gasped, her heart racing. "I didn't leave him." Was this creature feeding off her memories? Her guilt? A rush of images flooded her mind: jovial family evenings, laughing over silly ghost stories, and the way she had dismissed his fears, always thinking them childish. "Do you not remember?" it prodded, tauntingly. The eyes bore into her, demanding acknowledgement, as the shadows breathed life into images of Jake playing in the yard alone, whispers of his hidden truths tying him to this horrific entity, and then the basement groaned, echoing with 1,000 hidden secrets. With renewed determination, Samantha took one more step forward, ready to confront whatever twisted games this creature dared to play. "I won't lose him to you." Suddenly, an explosion of light flashed before her eyes, nearly blinding her. In the aftermath, she saw Jake, standing right behind the figure, confusion etched on his small face. "Mom?" he whispered softly, and the world tilted on its axis. A new chill slithered down her spine. What had she stepped into? Jake! She gasped, reaching out once more. But would he return to her, or was he forever bound to the shadows that threatened to consume them both? She had to know. But which was the trap, the figure, or the light? What would it cost her to find out? Samantha's heart leaped as she locked eyes with Jake, but the figure blocking him emitted an unsettling energy that tangled with her joy and squeezed it into despair. The shadows quivered, hungering for something. For her? For her son? A whisper flickered like flames around her ears, fraying any sanity she clung to. "Mom, help me!" Jake's voice pierced through the oppressive shroud, desperation heavy in the air. His innocent face was a beacon in the chaos, but the grotesque figure twitched, an unsettling smile cracking its dark facade. She was torn between racing to her son and confronting the creature that threatened him. "Stay back!" she shouted, adrenaline pushing her forward as she touched the railing, intent on leaping to Jake. Yet each step felt leaden, a grating resistance rippled through the basement, as if the very structure wanted to keep her away. The figure leaned closer, eyes glinting like shards of ice. "You can't save him, Samantha. He belongs to the darkness now, just like you once did." The words stabbed through her, sharper than any blade. She staggered, mind swirling with memories of the pain and regret she had buried. "You're lying!" she cried, hoping defiance would weaken its grip. But uncertainty coiled around her, an insidious whisper gnawing at her certainty. "Do you remember the night you first ignored his fears? How the shadows danced outside his window?" The voice was a chilling echo of her own, echoing her mistakes like a devil cackling at her suffering. "You thought they were harmless now," she shrieked, an instinctive denial that shattered the stillness. But doubt wormed its way into her heart, pinching it painfully. She was a mother, and the guilt surged like poison through her veins. "Mom!" Jake's voice was stronger now, filled with a childlike resilience that illuminated the thick darkness surrounding him. "I'm scared." The creature's laugh twisted into another form, a haunting symphony woven with despair. "Can you hear him? He knows the truth." Each word dripped with malice, twisting deeper into Samantha's anything but reinforced resolve to shield her boy from the evil that sought to ensnare them both. I won't abandon him. She stepped forward, the pain igniting in her chest. She pushed through the oppressive hunger of the shadows, the cold creeping closer, biting at her skin. Come closer, and find out the truth, it whispered, its voice thick with temptation, like loamy earth beckoning her to take root. It gestured, an unnaturally graceful movement that sent tendrils of shadow creeping toward Jake. Samantha could nearly see the lines of darkness snaking around her son, wrapping him tighter with each moment they stood divided. Get away from him! The words tore from her throat, a fierce battle cry in the face of overwhelming dread. She lunged, propelled by the flickering hope that he was still with her, still reachable. Mom, it hurts. Jake whimpered, tears glistening in his eyes that mirrored her own terror. Then reach for me. She outstretched her hand, every inch of her soul pleading with him to grasp her fingers, to pull him from the brink. But the blinding glow of the figure seemed to dull Jake's clarity, the shadows clouding his mind, the ground shook beneath her, the walls trembling. This is your chance, Samantha, the figure crooned, let go of the past, and join me in eternal power. Reject the weakness that binds you. Her vision blurred as Jake shimmered, an uncertainty growing within her. What if she was never meant to save him? The weight of all her failures crashed down as flickers of doubt swirled in the air like forgotten dreams. Samantha could feel the darkness creeping at her edges, the choice growing clearer. Was she ready to lose everything? Jake, it's a trick, she cried, willing him to see. But as his features distorted, trapped in the chaotic pull of the shadows, she knew she had to break this spell, had to act now. She stepped forward, heart hammering, pushing all uncertainty aside. I will save you. But just as she reached for him, the room exploded in a flash of blinding white, as if the universe itself was rending the fabric of reality. When she could see again, the figure was gone, but so was Jake. The echoes of his cries faded into the cacophony of the void around her. Jake, she whispered, breathless, alone in a silence that swallowed her whole. What had just happened? She stood at the threshold of despair, aware of something lurking in the corners, waiting. Would the shadows reveal what she had lost, or was there more at play than she could fathom? Samantha took a step back, uncertainty gripping her once more. What lay ahead in the dark abyss? Could her search for Jake lead to something even more horrifying than this moment of emptiness? The basement was alive with shifting shadows, the air thick and stale. Samantha's breath came out in frantic gasps, an echo that felt lost in the void. She could almost feel the dark space wrap around her, squeezing tighter as if testing her resolve. Where was Jake? Panic clawed at her insides. She took a hesitant step forward, scanning the room for any sign of him. The darkness rippled, forming grotesque shapes that danced at the corners of her vision. Each heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out all rational thought. She could almost hear Jake's laughter faint, fluttering, like a distant chime. Was it a memory or a deceptive trick of the shadows? Jake! She called, the desperation sharp as a knife. No response. Just silence, thick and cold, as if the darkness itself had swallowed his voice whole. Then it hit her, a flicker of movement near a cluster of cobwebbed crates. She rushed toward it, heart racing, praying it was her son. Jake! But as she neared the shadowy spot, the figure reappeared, its form wavering like a flame in the wind. It stood tall, looming, a sickening grin stretching across its face. Did you really think you could find him here? Samantha stumbled backward, the weight of its words pulling her under. What have you done to him? She screamed, fists clenched at her sides. Each accusation felt powerless against the looming threat. The figure tilted its head, the smile widening. Only what you allowed you sealed his fate the day you chose ignorance over love. Samantha shook her head violently, tears streaming down her cheeks. No. That's not true. I tried to protect him. But the shadows tightened around her, their breath hot and rancid on her skin, whispering dark promises and dredging up every moment she had faltered. Each failure dripped like venom into her veins, filling her with dread. Then, something shifted at her feet, a broken shard of glass, glinting eerily beneath the flickering light. It seemed to pulse, alive with a dark energy that called to her. She picked it up, its jagged edge biting into her palm. Kill it, the shadows hissed softly, seductive. End the source of your misery. Embrace the darkness. With a surge of adrenaline, a primal instinct to protect her son drove her forward. "I will not give in," she screamed at the figure, clenching the shard tighter. But as she lunged, the air turned viscous, holding her back as if she were moving through molasses. She felt herself being weighed down by memories, each one a chain that bound her to the darkness. "Let go," it taunted, its voice shimmering with mockery. "This is not your fight anymore. He is lost." "No!" The word erupted from her lips like a battle cry. She fought against the suffocating grip of the shadows, every ounce of fear igniting her resolve. "I will not abandon him." Below her, the ground rumbled in response, and with the force of her defiance, she felt a crack form in the darkness. Light poured through, blinding and warm, illuminating the remnants of her tears and fears. Out of the fractures in the shadows, a shape began to emerge, small, crystalline, and light. Was it Jake? Or just another illusion? Hope flickered in her chest, fragile yet insistent. But before she could reach for the light, the figure howled in fury, the shadows recoiling. "You think you can fight me? This is only the beginning." The light dimmed, becoming tainted by the creeping shadows that wrapped around it, suffocating it slowly. "Jake!" she cried, her voice breaking. The desperation painted her world in dark strokes, every heartbeat counting down to an uncertain fate. Samantha felt the ground under her tremble, the world around her shifting. Would she truly lose him? Was she bound to repeat the past, chained by her own failures? She stepped closer to the light, fear strangling her breath. "Please, show me your way back." But with that, the shadows surged, angry and ravenous, and the world around her fractured, splintering into unknown possibilities. "Will you dare to follow?" whispered the darkness, taunting. As the ground below began to sway, a haunting thought clawed at her. If she followed the light, could she save Jake? Or would it lead to an even deeper darkness? What choice would she make in the face of despair? The shadows whispered, coiling tighter. Only one thing was clear: whatever lay ahead could either shatter her or guide her back to her son. And time was running out. The ground heaved beneath Samantha, a heartbeat of its own, quaking with the urgency of her choices. She swung the shard of glass toward the encroaching darkness, its jagged edge catching what little light remained. But fear wrapped around her chest, tightening like a noose. What if she was meant to fail? Follow or be lost? The shadows jeered, their voices blending into a cacophony of screams and laughter, each taunt echoing her own self-doubt. Summoning every ounce of strength, Samantha stepped into the fractured light, feeling that heat wash over her like a warm embrace. It almost felt like hope. "Jake!" she pleaded again, her voice ringing out, desperate and unsure. She barely registered when the shadows faltered, recoiling as if they too feared the light. Heart racing, she moved closer, trying to pierce through the veil that separated her from Jake. But another wave of darkness surged forward, its claws scraping against her skin, dragging her down. "No!" she cried, fighting against its grip, each movement feeling heavier than the last. Fingers of shadow curled around her wrists, pulling her back as if desperate to reclaim her. "Stay in the dark, Samantha," the figure beckoned. "You know there is no salvation for him here, only for yourself. Join us." With that, part of the shadow unfurled, revealing a path that twisted into the darkness, an exit cloaked in promise and deceit. "Don't listen!" yelled a familiar voice, tugging at her through the chaos. "I'm here, Mom. I can see you." The sweetness of Jake's words carved a space in her heart, pushing back the consuming dread. "You have to fight. There." Amidst the monsters that fed on failure, her son's voice shone like a beacon. She couldn't just stand there. With renewed strength, she tore her hands free from the shadows, using the shard as a weapon of her will. "I won't let you take him." The air vibrated around her, the atmosphere thick with tension as the shadows screeched, retreating for just a moment. But relief was short-lived as the very ground beneath her trembled with fury. Cracks spidered through the surface, pulsating with dark energy. "Foolish woman!" the figure bellowed. "You defy fate. You dare to challenge what has already been decided?" With every passing second, it felt like the ground would swallow her whole. Jake, where are you? The darkness loomed, ready to consume her again. I'm right here, Mom. He sounded closer now, hope mingled with despair cutting through the shadow's dense veil. She took a deep breath, bracing herself for the next step, preparing to face whatever horror waited, but as she pushed further into the light, it flickered dangerously, the warmth starting to drench in a cold dread. What's happening? She gasped, feeling the warmth of her hope blurring with the chill of the encroaching darkness. The shadows were regrouping, their whispers turning frantic and frantic. Leave her. She will bring nothing but ruin. No. She stepped forward, the shard trembling in her grasp. You lie. He needs me. I will save him. The light began to dim, flickering like a dying flame, and the shadows surged, their forms twisting and swirling, filling her vision. Only one of you will escape this. The figure hissed, an echo of malice. One is light, the other darkness. Which will you choose? In the depths of the looming darkness, each breath felt frantic. One choice loomed ahead: embrace the light or delve deep into shadow, leaving everything behind. As the chaos escalated, the walls of the basement trembled, dust cascading from above. And with it came the darkness, merciless and relentless, ready to devour her whole. Will you let go of your son to save yourself? The choice lingered, hanging heavy in the air. Samantha's heart thundered in her chest. Time refused to wait. In that moment, the shadows surged forward once again, chin rising, mouths wide and hungry. Jake! She screamed. Would she sacrifice it all? But in this labyrinth of despair, it seemed one choice could extinguish the very light her son fought so hard to find. Could she bear what came next? The shadows crept closer, clawing at her resolve. What would she do when it mattered most? The darkness pressed in like a vice, squeezing the breath from Samantha's lungs. She felt dizzy, every shadowy whisper clawing at her mind. The claws of doubt dug deeper as she thought of Jake, shouting her name, bright and desperate. She couldn't let go. Mom, please. You have to believe. His voice again. It was like a lifeline thrown into the swirling abyss. But the figure in the deepening dark bared its jagged teeth, a grotesque grin that chilled her to the bone. Your son's pain is your salvation, Samantha. Embrace this truth, and you may finally set yourself free. Her hands shook as she fought to keep her grip on the shard. A crude weapon against a nightmare. The reality of Jake's fate sat like a stone in her gut. You're lying. She shouted, defiance rippling through her fragile despair. I won't join you. In that moment, the ground shook violently, and the shadows let out a collective wail, a sound that reverberated through the cracks in the earth. For a heartbeat, the chaos stilled. Choose, Samantha. The voice crescendoed, spiteful and high, scraping against her eardrums. Make your beloved boy a sacrifice, or become the shadow you fear. Panic surged through Samantha. Her memories surged, images of Jake playing in sunlit parks, the way he laughed, the warmth of his hug. That was love, the brightest light. If she lost him, what would she be? Mom! The call rang out again, shaking her to her core. So close. Gathering her breath, she took a step toward the sound. I'll find you, Jake. I will. But as she moved into the light, the flicker swung like a pendulum, swinging dangerously low. The shadows thickened around her, trying to slither back into her mind, wrapping tightly like serpents. You won't escape. You are never leaving this place. Either embrace the darkness or surrender to oblivion. They hissed, the noise crawling over her skin. Enough! She roared, swinging the shard wildly. I won't be afraid. And then silence. The shadows hesitated, recoiling as if stung. The light flared up, illuminating more than mere space. It illuminated her choices. Shakily, she wielded the shard like a talisman. With each jagged cut of glass in the air, she could feel the shadows retreat, their shrieks turning into muffled howls. Jake! The name burst forth in desperation. Where are you? But her voice shattered against the darkness. The weight of her breath began to thicken. The shadows began to shift, forming shapes, twisting into grotesque copies of people she once loved. faces of family, friends. All staring at her, eyes devoid of life. Leave this behind, Samantha, they offer you comfort. Their voices entwined, a lament of memories meant to keep her rooted in despair. No. You're not real. She shouted, her heart pounding. I choose my son. The walls trembled, echoing her defiance, and the darkness flared with rage. Foolish woman. You will pay dearly. The room dimmed again, shadows swirling faster, the air thickening with malice. She gasped, feeling a fracture building inside her, torn between love and fear, light and darkness. Mom! I need you! Jake's weak call echoed, mixing with the sinister laughter of the shadows. The urgency pulsed within her. She felt light slipping, pulling her apart. I'm coming! She lunged into the dark, clinging to the image of Jake. The shadows surged forward, wrapping her in their frigid grasp. Relentless and insatiable whispers filled her ears, all at once. We'll devour you whole, one bite at a time, Samantha screamed, the darkness clawing at the edges of her sanity. She squeezed her eyes shut, heart racing as she fought against the tide of despair and terror. But the deeper she pushed into the night, the louder the darkness roared. Would she lose herself trying to save him? The thought sent a shiver down her spine, and she trembled at the sheer bleakness of her choice. Jake! And then, amidst the chaos, a sharp glimmer sparked behind her eyelids, daring, bright, an ember of light that refused to die. Back to the shadows. The figure howled. But a stillness fell around her. Something shifted. What if she hadn't just been fighting for Jake? What if she had been fighting for herself all along? Samantha's heart thundered in her chest, each beat an urgent reminder that she had to act. The darkness swirled around her, thick as fog, pressing into her lungs. But there, beyond the oppressive shadows, the small, defiant glimmer flickered, a beacon. The malevolent laughter surged again, a cacophony of taunts and accusations. You think that light can save you? It only reveals how weak you truly are. She drew in a shaky breath, feeling the shard warm against her palm. This was more than a weapon. It was a promise that she would fight, that she would find Jake. Go back to him. She shouted, voice steady despite the chaos. I won't let you take me. I won't let you take him. As if responding to her words, the shadows convulsed, writhing with frustration. They lunged at her in a monstrous wave, reaching for her with clawed hands, eager to snuff out her tiny light. But instead of retreating, she stepped forward, the shard raised high. Light burst forth from it, slicing the thick darkness into ribbons. The shadows shrieked, recoiling, hissing like serpents. It felt like she was running on a razor's edge, the thin line between saving Jake and losing herself teetering dangerously. Jake! She called again, her voice cutting through the chaos, stronger now. I'm coming. Just then, she felt a tug, an unmistakable link pulling her towards the faint echoes of her son's call. Gathering every ounce of strength, she plunged deeper into the blackness, trusting the shard would guide her. Visions swarmed as she moved, flashes of glowing eyes, twisted laughter, memories of moments that twisted into something grotesque. They whispered her fears. He is already gone. The shadows took form, reminding her of the pain she had buried. But she shoved the thoughts away, fueled instead by the image of Jake's face, the brightness of his smile, the way he drew her in with his laughter. It was unbearable to let go. She wouldn't let them drown her in despair. The further she walked, the more palpable the weight of darkness became, thickening around her until it was suffocating. Her muscles strained against the unseen pressure, each breath a struggle, every step a fight against the fear that threatened to drown her resolve. Do you feel it? The voice hissed, circling. The darkness wants you. It knows your weaknesses. It knows the guilt you carry. No! She cried out, pushing through the suffocating dread. I know my strength. I know my love. The shadows writhed violently as her words acted like salt poured on a wound. For a moment, she felt them retreat, flinching from her truth. And then, a soft glow broke through the blackness, a doorway appearing, framed in pure, soft light. An image of her son, Jake, flickered just beyond it, lost in the shadows but reaching out toward her. Mom! His voice held both fear and hope, shooting straight through her heart. Hurry! It sent adrenaline coursing through her veins, and with a fierce cry, she plunged toward the light. The shadows, now desperate, lunged at her heels, their claws grasping and scraping at her back with furious intent. For a split second, time stretched as she leaped into the radiance. It enveloped her, wrapping around her like a warm embrace, but only for an instant. As the darkness roared in fury, she barely registered that it was closing in. With a final shout, she burst through the threshold, leaving the shadows behind at least for the moment. But silence followed her. Jake was gone, the warmth of his voice snuffed out. The light faded, and she was left panting, surrounded by sheer blackness once again. Jake! Panic surged through her chest. Her heart raced, mazed now, she felt the weight of something new deep in her gut. Was she truly gone from them? A chilling breeze swept past her, whispering promises of despair. The darkness had merely retreated, waiting patiently. But she was not ready to surrender. When the shadows come calling, they insist on payment. And she needed a plan. As her pulse quickened, the whisper returned, dark and seductive, "You've tasted the light for too long, will you join us? Willingly next time?" It lingered long after she thought she'd escaped. Would she find Jake, or had she already stepped too far into the darkness? Samantha's heart raced as she swung the shard of glass again, feeling its jagged edge vibrate with the energy of the struggle that lay before her. Panic surged within her, but she dared not yield to its crushing weight. She thought of Jake, his laughter, his kindness, and the innocence that the shadows sought to devour. "You will not take him. I refuse." She hurled her voice into the thick abyss, each syllable an act of defiance. In that moment, the dark figure faltered, its malignant form twisting in ways that betrayed uncertainty for the first time. Shadows writhed as if recoiling from her fierce spirit, and the air pulsed thick with an electric charge. This was her chance. "Jake!" she called, and her voice was now a beacon, shattering the stillness. The basement trembled like a living organism, and in the crackling silence that followed, Jake's small figure materialized before her, his frightened eyes wide with both hope and terror. "Mom! Help me!" he cried, reaching out with small, unsteady hands that trembled but stretched toward the warm light emanating from her heart. Samantha surged forward, reckless with the urgency of a mother's love, closing the distance between them. "I'm coming." She plunged into the darkness, determined to break whatever curse held him captive. A surge of warmth flooded her, igniting the shard she wielded, casting a radiant light that illuminated the twisted shadows. "Do you truly think you can save him?" The figure mocked from behind, its voice low and gravelly, a whisper weaving through the darkness. "He is mine." "No!" she yelled, summoning all the strength of her fear and love into a single word. The shadows writhed like snakes at the sound, drawing back from the brightness. With each step she took, light erupted, tearing their hold apart, revealing the path to her son. "Mom, please." Jake's voice was filled with desperation, and with every ounce of strength, Samantha moved closer, feeling the joy of their reunion pulsing just ahead. "I'm scared." "Stay with me. Don't let go." She leapt forward, the glass shard glowing in her grasp as it defeated the advancing darkness. She felt the tendrils of fear and despair trying to latch onto her as she stretched her arm towards Jake, who seemed to float away in the swirling void. The shadows twisted, screeching in fury, desperate to maintain their grip. Clutching the shard tight, Samantha pressed through the storm of shadows that clawed at her. "I will save you." Her voice echoed, ringing with resolve that surged through the dark like a shockwave. Just then, she broke through the murk, feeling Jake's tiny hand grasp hers, his warm touch igniting a surge of energy that swept through her. "I'm here. I got you." Joy flared within her, pure, relentless joy. They pulled together, now locked in a fierce embrace in the light of hope, but darkness surged back, furious and relentless. The entity's howl filled the air like an infernal wind, seething, "You will regret this. You know the cost of betrayal." It lunged toward them, and for a harrowing moment, Samantha saw Jake's terrified face reflect uncertainty, as if the shadows were weaving confusion in his mind. But she couldn't lose him, not again. "Hold on, Jake," she pleaded, tightening her grip. "I will fight for you," she cried defiantly, stepping forward, using the shard like a sword against their foes. The light exploded around them, pushing the darkness back, illuminating not only the room but the very essence of her determination. Tendrils of shadow screamed, recoiling from the brightness that surged as Samantha moved forward without hesitation. Energized by love, each ounce of ferocity she possessed exploded into the sphere of light that now shrouded them. We're stronger together. We leave this darkness behind. With a final push, they surged into the light, breaking free. The basement shook violently, shadows writhing in a futile attempt to regroup and reclaim what they had lost. But Samantha, with her son by her side, felt something shift, a sliver of hope that pierced through the residue of despair, and then silence. They emerged. Not just into the basement, but back into the familiar warmth of their home, the morning light streaming through the windows. Samantha gasped, heart pounding as she looked around. She clutched Jake tightly against her, feeling the thrum of relief wash over her. "It's over, sweetheart," she whispered, choking back sobs. The memories of their fear, entwined like a dark vine, floated away with every breath she took. "We're safe now." Jake looked up, eyes shining with trust. "You came for me, Mom?" "Always," she replied, her voice steady now. Outside, the world felt renewed, the shadows broken. Neighbors went about their day, blissfully unaware that darkness could linger just beyond the surface. But for Samantha, she now understood the balance of light and shadow. You fight for those you love, and sometimes, it's the fight within that matters most. As they walked out into the sunlight, Jake beamed with innocence, his laughter filling the air. Samantha felt the heaviness lift, replacing it with a resolute strength. "I love you, Jake," she said softly. "I love you too, Mom." Together they stepped hand in hand, determined to face whatever might come next. The darkness would always be there. But so would they, ready to shine bright against the odds. Don't you dare forget, this is the moment to support us. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now. You need to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this thrilling conclusion. Real fans know how important it is to stand together in support. Let us keep the stories rolling.